Accountants, those sad little people with the most boring job in the world. The funny thing is, you could probably swap the word boring for important, and that sentence would be just as true. In fact, keeping track of goods exchanged and money traded was the very first thing humans ever wrote about. And in today's extremely fast-paced and ever-changing economy, it's arguably even more important than it's ever been. In this video, we're going to dive into everything about accounting. What they actually do, the surprising places accounting might take you, how much money they make, the skills you need to succeed, and most importantly, whether it's a safe career bet or a profession that could be flipped upside down by AI. Stick around to find out, and let's dive in. In a sentence, accounting is the language of business, or it's the art of keeping track of an organization's money, or it's the story of a company told in numbers. They're all equally true, pick whichever one clicks the most for you. I don't really care because at its core, accounting aims to answer three fundamental questions for an organization or person. How much money came in, how much money went out, and what's left over at the end. These were the fundamental questions that built the entire industry of accounting. Add on to that the need to comply with laws, attract investors, plan for growth, spot problems early, raise debt, etc., and it's grown into a beast of its own with 5 main branches. Let's dive into each of those branches and make sure to stick around for the 5th because it explains how the mobster Al Capone eventually got caught. First up, we've got financial accounting. These guys prepare reports like balance sheets, income statements, and cash flow statements. Quick examples so you understand each. Let's say you own a coffee shop. Here's what your balance sheet might look like. On the left, we've got our assets, or what the business owns. Some cash, coffee machines and equipment, and then some inventory. $30K in total. But how did the business afford all of this? That's where the right side of the balance sheet comes in. First, we've got liabilities, which is what the business owes. Maybe we took out a $12K bank loan and we also owe $3K to some coffee bean suppliers. But that doesn't account for everything. That's only $15K. And so underneath our liabilities, we've got our owner's equity, which is the difference between our assets and our liabilities. In this case, $15K as well. And now we have a balanced balance sheet with $30K on the left and $30K on the right. Your assets always need to equal your liabilities plus your owner's equity. Anyways, onto income statements. This is like the daily, weekly, or monthly scoreboard for how much the shop made. We start off at the top with our revenue. We then tally up all our expenses, calculate the difference, and figure out if we made a profit or a loss for that period. And finally, we've got the cash flow statement, which is kind of similar to the income statement, except it's only following a company's cash. For instance, in our income statement example, we use $6,000 in coffee beans and milk for that month, but we might have purchased $30,000 in beans and milk in bulk 2 months ago. And that $30K leaving our cash balance is what the cash flow statement is more concerned with. So our cash flow statement might look something like this. We had $20K inflows from customers. We also got refunded $2,000 from a supplier for a faulty refrigerator. We had a bunch of outflows, $6K to suppliers, $7K to staff. We had to pay our rent, and we also put down $2K to repay a loan. Overall on the month, we had a net cash change of $4,000, $22K in, $18K out. And so if we started the month with $10K in cash as per our balance sheet, we now have $14,000. And so together, all three of these give you a pretty great picture of the overall health of a business. The balance sheet shows you what you have versus what you owe. The income statement shows if you made any money this month, and the cash flow statement shows where the actual cash went. And it's important to realize that different people will care about different numbers. Which brings us onto managerial accounting. And this is all about giving insiders, people inside your company, the numbers they need to make better decisions. Imagine 10 years down the line from opening your first coffee shop. You now own multiple cafes all across the city. You're going to want some managerial accountants to help break down the cost of each store, calculating how much money is made per coffee, figuring out which days are the busiest so you have enough staff to handle the demand, and maybe even forecasting where your next coffee shop should be and why. The financial accounting reports like the balance sheets and income statements, they're very polished and precise and are used for outsiders like investors or banks. The stuff managerial accountants produce is more real. It's the nitty-gritty insights, the digging deep and understanding the filth of a business to help the company make the right decisions. And one of those decisions you're going to want to nail is how you're handling your taxes. Tax accounting is fairly obvious. These guys help you make sure taxes are filed properly. But that's not all they do. Good tax accountants will help you find every legal way possible to minimize the amount of tax you owe. And there's a big difference between minimization and evasion. Make sure you understand that or you might end up behind bars. Anyway, these guys are super valuable. They're like your professional tour guide who takes you through the jungle of tax law. They make sure you don't step on landmines while also pointing out hidden shortcuts that save you money. Next, we've got auditing. These guys are the truth checkers. They look at a company's financial reports and ask, are these numbers legit? And that's obviously super important. Without them, we'd have companies lying left, right, and center, and investors and banks wouldn't be able to believe anyone ever. They're like the police of the accounting world. Without them, everything would go to shit. And speaking of police, next we've got forensic accountants. And these guys are literally financial detectives. They dig into suspicious money trails, they track fraud, and they help build cases for lawsuits or criminal charges. And these were the guys that helped nail the mobster Al Capone. The police couldn't catch him for murder, or extortion, or smuggling, but forensic accountants were able to prove he wasn't paying his taxes. You might be able to get away with murder, but you'll never get away with not paying Uncle Sam. Okay, so now we know what accounting is, and it should be fairly obvious why it's so important. But on a daily basis, what are all these accountants actually doing? Which companies are they working for? What tools and skills do they need to thrive? And how much money can they realistically earn? That's the next section. Before we go any further, I want to quickly tell you about Chat LLM from Abacus AI, the sponsor of today's video. I've recently been using their awesome tool Chat LLM to help me with my workflow. The main reason I like it so much is because it has all the most powerful large language models in the same place. I used to have multiple ChatGPT tabs, a Grok tab, sometimes even a Midjourney tab. Now I have all of that in Chat LLM. And so as you can see here, I'll put in a prompt like how many Bitcoin did Ross Ulbricht lose when the Silk Road went down, and Root LLM will direct the query to the LLM it thinks will do the best job. In this case, ChatGPT-5, and if I don't like the answer, I can then ask it to regenerate using Claude Sonnet or any other model really. The craziest thing is that it's only $10 a month. Grok is like $30 a month, ChatGPT is $25, Claude is another $30. I now literally get access to all of them for $10. Oh, and don't forget about the $50 that Midjourney costs. Yes, Chat LLM handles image and video generation like a pro. Guys, this one will honestly save you money and make your workflow so much easier. Go visit chatllm.abacus.ai, click the link in the description to check them out. A big thanks to the Abacus team for sponsoring the channel. Now let's get back to the video. Let's imagine a friend, Sarah. She's fresh out of uni with her shining new accounting degree. Where's she headed? Well, let's say she's ambitious, wants some prestige, a challenge, and maybe a career that can send her around the globe. She's going to want to apply to the Big Four, the Mount Rushmore of accounting: Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. They hire thousands of grads every year and handle audits and consulting for the biggest companies in the world. Super competitive, but it's like boot camp for your career. You'll learn fast, work hard, earn a good salary, and have doors opened everywhere. Maybe she wants more balance though. Maybe she doesn't want to be surrounded by wannabe finance bros. Maybe she doesn't want to feel like an easily replaceable cog in a massive machine. Then she might choose a mid-tier accounting firm. Still professional, still very challenging, and the pay is pretty much just as good. Difference is, you'll get to work directly with small to medium business owners, local law firms, restaurant owners, maybe even YouTubers. And because of that, the work is more varied. The work-life balance is usually better, and you get more client exposure early on. Or maybe Sarah wants to skip accounting firms altogether and go straight into corporate accounting. Every large company, Apple, Tesla, Netflix, has their own finance department and team of internal accountants. So instead of focusing on dozens of clients, she'd focus on a single business handling things like budgets, payroll, planning, and reporting. This is the kind of job that often leads to CFO roles. Then there's the government angle. She could join the tax office, maybe the city council or a non-profit. And honestly, the government could use all the help they can get. The amount of spending these guys do on dumb shit, it's like monkeys run the entire department. And then there's all the other niches: forensic accounting, consulting, or even working for a fintech startup. Basically, wherever there's money, there's a job for Sarah. How much money is she going to make though? And is AI going to flip all of these career paths on their heads? Let's say Sarah goes Big Four. Straight out of uni, she might start around 55 to 70k. Not bad, not great, but the real payoff is the career acceleration. In a few years, she'll be earning six figures, and if she sticks it out long enough and makes it to partner, we're talking 300k minimum and up to millions if she pays her dues. It's prestige and pretty great money, but soul-crushing hours. If she goes mid-tier accounting firm, the starting salary is probably the same, but you're getting a much better lifestyle. You're not killing yourself with 70-hour work weeks, and you're still making solid money. In a corporate role, she might start around 60k, and if she successfully climbs the ladder to financial controller or CFO, she could easily be on 200k plus, in addition to bonus incentives. The shitty pay comes when you work for the government, but you'll probably never be fired unless you mess up bad, you'll get a killer pension, and so you're just going to have overall career stability for as long as you want. But now you need to know what kinds of tools and skills you'll actually need to thrive in this kind of career and how AI is going to change the future of accounting drastically. So, what does Sarah actually need in her toolkit to survive and thrive as an accountant? First up, the obvious one, Excel. If you can't handle spreadsheets, formulas, pivot tables, and VLOOKUPs, you're bringing a spoon to a gunfight. Next, getting comfortable with accounting software. For small and medium businesses, it's QuickBooks and Xero. And for bigger companies, it's massive systems like SAP or Oracle. These are the places where every invoice, payroll, and supplier payment lives. But tools will only get you so far. An idiot with the best tools in the world is still an idiot. The difference maker is skills. Attention to detail, communication, problem solving, and ethics. Attention to detail is life or death in accounting. One misplaced decimal point and your company or client might be in the red and shitting the bed for millions of dollars. Communication is just as important because your boss or client doesn't care about your Excel or accounting jargon. They want to know if we're making money or going broke in plain English. Problem solving is obvious. You're either part of the solution or part of the problem. If you can't problem solve, then you're part of the problem. And above all, ethics. In accounting, once your reputation's gone, so is your career. But this is where the AI bomb drops. AI is already automating data entry, invoice matching, and even parts of tax prep. And it's only getting better. In other words, the boring grunt work of accounting is disappearing. And so the future accountant's day is less filled with recording transactions and more about interpreting numbers, advising businesses, and telling the story behind the spreadsheets. Here's how. There's three big forces shaping the future of accounting: AI, globalization, and evolving roles. As we just mentioned, AI is handling the boring stuff, the scanning of receipts, matching transactions, and flagging weird financial patterns faster than any human ever could. But it can't yet replace judgment, especially in a holistic manner. It might see that you spent 40k on marketing and only got 20k back in direct sales and then flag bad ROI, but a human accountant might realize, hang on, this campaign wasn't meant to drive sales immediately. It was a brand awareness push for a future new product launch. The payoff comes in 6 months. Or it might see that you're profitable for this quarter and congratulate you with green flags everywhere. But the human accountant realizes, yeah, but a new tax law hits next year, and if we don't restructure, it's gonna hurt us bad. And then there's the emotional intelligence and communication aspect of accounting. Telling a small business owner your company is bleeding money isn't just about the numbers. It's also about how you deliver that message. Does the client need reassuring? Does she need motivating? Or is it time to provide a brutally honest reality check? Let's not kid ourselves though. AI is 100% getting better at analysis and advice and will be included in almost every job imaginable in the future. But that doesn't mean the future accountant is competing against it. They're gonna be working with it. Which brings us onto the evolving roles aspect of the future of accounting. Because of how much AI will handle, accountants will spend less time recording statements and managing the books and more time advising businesses, spotting risks and guiding strategy. Accountants already do this kind of stuff, especially as you work your way up the corporate ladder and reach a more trusted position within the company. But soon it's going to be everyone's main responsibility, which I think is much cooler than the boring grunt work. And then there's a globalization aspect. Accounting used to be a very local job, and that's because most countries have their own unique accounting practices. But now we've got international standards like the IFRS, and so accounting qualifications are becoming portable. If Sarah got her accounting degree in Australia, she could take those skills to London, Singapore, or New York. Same skills, different skyline. So I think the future looks pretty bright for accountants. You can find a job almost anywhere in the world, and you're no longer just a boring numbers person. You're an advisor, strategist, communicator, and global operator. So, should you do it?
Just do it!
Well, if you want a job that pays solid money, has great stability, and lets you work pretty much anywhere in the world, accounting's a safe bet. If you're the type of person that's maybe a little OCD, has a crazy level of detail, and is a bit of a perfectionist, or maybe you just love the numbers side of businesses, it's an even better bet. But don't be an accountant if you're the type to break rules, or you want creative freedom in your job, or you love a bit of chaos at work. Accountants are basically the financial backbone of our society. Without them, businesses crumble, governments collapse, and billionaires can't figure out how to hide their yachts. So yeah, it's not the flashiest job in the world, but if you like solving puzzles, keeping things organized, and occasionally feeling like a financial Sherlock Holmes, accounting might just be the smartest move you ever make. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.